The forgotten threat. The gleaming spires of New Geneva stretched towards the stars, a testament to humanity's resilience. Captain Area Chen stood at the viewport of her small apartment, her dark eyes reflecting the cityscape below. It had been 20 years since the end of the Nexus War, a conflict that had nearly torn the galaxy apart. Humanity had played a crucial role in ending that war, but now they were forgotten, dismissed as a relic of the past. Aria's comlink chirped, pulling her from her brooding. "Captain Chen," a gruff voice said, "your presence is required at headquarters immediately." "Understood, Admiral Zhao. I'm on my way." As she made her way through the bustling streets, Aria couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The Galactic Council had been making increasingly aggressive moves lately, pushing humanity further and further to the margins of interstellar politics. But why summon her? She'd been relegated to a desk job years ago, her combat experience deemed no longer relevant in this new era of supposed peace. The gleaming edifice of Earth Defense Force headquarters loomed before her, a relic of a more militant time. Inside, she found Admiral Zhao waiting, his craggy face creased with worry. "Captain Chen," he said, dispensing with formalities, "what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. We've intercepted communications suggesting that the Galactic Council is planning to neutralize Earth." Aria's blood ran cold. "Neutralize? You mean an attack?" "Yes. They view us as a potential threat, a sleeping giant that needs to be put down before it can wake up." "But that's insane," Aria protested. "We've been model citizens of the galaxy for 2 decades. We've followed every treaty, every regulation." "They remember what we're capable of," Zhao cut in, "and they fear it. The council races have grown complacent, arrogant in their superiority. They've forgotten why humans were once the most feared force in the galaxy." Aria's mind raced. "Why tell me this, sir? I'm just a washed-up captain with no ship and no crew." Zhao's eyes glinted. "Because, Captain, you're the best we've got. Your war record speaks for itself. I need you to lead a covert mission to gather concrete evidence of this plot, and, if possible, stop it before it's too late." "With all due respect, sir, that's insane. I'd need a ship, a crew." "You'll have them," Zhao said, sliding a datapad across his desk. "The Artemis. She's old, but she's got teeth. As for the crew," he tapped the pad, bringing up a series of profiles. "I've assembled a team of, let's call them specialized individuals. Each one has a unique skill set that could prove invaluable." Aria scrolled through the profiles, her eyebrows rising. "Sir, half of these people are criminals or outcasts. Desperate times, Captain. They're the best at what they do. And right now, we need the best." Aria took a deep breath, weighing the enormity of what was being asked of her. If she failed, Earth would be defenseless. If she succeeded, well, she might just start a war. "When do we leave?" she asked. Zhao smiled grimly. "Immediately. Your crew is already assembling at the old lunar shipyards. The Artemis is being prepped as we speak." As Aria turned to leave, Zhao called out, "Captain, the fate of humanity rests on your shoulders. Don't let us down." The journey to the lunar shipyards was tense, filled with furtive glances and whispered conversations. As Aria's shuttle docked with the ancient facility, she steeled herself for what was to come. The airlock hissed open, revealing the motley assortment of individuals, her new crew. There was Zora Kivash, a Rigelian tech expert with a penchant for hacking and a price on her head in 3-star systems. Beside her stood Dex Mallory, a human smuggler with a network of contacts spanning half the galaxy. Leaning against a bulkhead was Kronta, a hulking Taurian warrior, whose species was renowned for their strength and combat prowess. "All right, listen up," Aria called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous docking bay. "I know most of you are here because you've got nowhere else to go. Some of you are running from your past, others from the law. But right now, none of that matters. We've got a job to do, And if we fail, Earth burns. So whatever your reasons for being here, whatever grudges or vendettas you might have, you leave them at the airlock. From this moment on, we're a team. Is that clear?" A chorus of grunts and nods answered her. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. "Good. Now, let's see this ship of ours." The Artemis was a relic, a warship from the Nexus conflict that had somehow avoided the scrapyard. Her hull was scared, her paint faded, but as Aria ran her hand along the cool metal, she could feel the strength beneath. This old girl had some fight left in her yet. As the crew began to board and prep for launch, Dex sidled up to Aria. "So, Captain," he drawled, his easy smile not quite reaching his eyes, "care to fill us in on the mission? Or are we flying blind into whatever hellhole you're taking us to?" Aria fixed him with a steely gaze. "We're heading to Centauri Prime. The Galactic Council is holding an emergency session there in 3 days. Our job is to infiltrate, gather evidence of their plans against Earth, and get out without starting an interstellar incident." Dex whistled low. "Centauri Prime. That's not just the lion's den, Captain. It's the lion's den, filled with angry lions with us covered in barbecue sauce. That's why I need your contacts, Mallory. We need a way in that won't trip every alarm in the system." Dex's smile turned genuine. "Well, now that I might be able to help with. I know a guy who knows a guy." As the last of the crew boarded, Aria took one final look at the Earth hanging in the void beyond the shipyard. Everything she'd ever known, everyone she'd ever loved, was on that blue marble. And now it all depended on her and this misfit crew. "All right, Artemis," she murmured, patting the ship's hull. "Let's show them what we can do." The ancient engines roared to life, and the Artemis lifted off, leaving behind the safety of Earth and hurtling towards an uncertain future. As they cleared Luna's orbit, Aria felt a familiar thrill coursing through her veins. This was what she was born for. The unknown, the impossible odds, the fate of worlds hanging in the balance. The Galactic Council had forgotten the strength of humanity. They'd forgotten why Earth was once feared throughout the stars. But Aria Chen and her crew, they were about to remind them. And God help anyone who stood in their way. Echoes of the past. As the Artemis hurtled through hyperspace, Aria found herself unable to sleep. The weight of their mission pressed down on her, memories of the past mingling with fears for the future. She made her way to the ship's observation deck, hoping the sight of the swirling vortex of hyperspace might calm her nerves. To her surprise, she found Kronta there, the massive Taurian's bulk silhouetted against the viewing port. "Trouble sleeping, Captain?" his rumbling voice asked. Aria moved to stand beside him. "Just ghosts from the past, Kronta. Nothing to worry about." The Taurian turned to face her, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. "I fought alongside humans in the Nexus War, you know. My people remember your kind's ferocity, your unwillingness to yield even in the face of certain defeat. It was inspiring." Aria's mind drifted back to those dark days. The Nexus War had begun as a territorial dispute between the Arcturian Empire and the Vega Confederacy, but it had quickly spiraled into a galaxy-wide conflict. Humanity, still new to the galactic stage, had been drawn in almost by accident. "We were outgunned, outmatched in almost every way," Aria murmured, lost in the memories. "But we had something the other races didn't." "And what was that, Captain?" Aria's eyes hardened. "Desperation. We knew that if we lost, Earth would burn. So we got creative. We innovated. We did things that the other races considered impossible or insane." She remembered the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where a handful of human ships had held off an entire Arcturian battle fleet by using their own sun as a weapon. The Siege of Ta City, where human ground forces had fought for months, vastly outnumbered, using guerrilla tactics that left their enemies in disarray. "We turned our weaknesses into strengths," Aria continued. "Our short lifespans meant we were willing to take risks the longer-lived races wouldn't. Our diverse cultures gave us a flexibility of thought that the more homogeneous species lacked, and our history of conflict on Earth. It made us better warriors than anyone expected. Kronta nodded solemnly. And now the Council fears that strength might be turned against them. Exactly. They'd grown complacent, forgotten what it's like to face a real threat. So instead of embracing humanity as allies, they want to eliminate us as a potential enemy. The ship's intercom crackled to life, interrupting their conversation. "Captain to the bridge," Zara's voice called out. "We're approaching Centauri Prime." As Aria made her way to the bridge, her resolve hardened. The lessons of the past would serve them well in the challenges to come. The Artemis dropped out of hyperspace on the outskirts of the Centauri system, its ancient stealth systems engaged. Dex's contacts had come through, providing them with forged credentials and a cover story as a minor diplomatic delegation from a frontier world. "All right, people," Aria addressed her crew. "We've got a narrow window here. The Council's emergency session begins in 12 hours. Zara, you and Dex will infiltrate the central data hub. Find any evidence you can of this plot against Earth. Kronta, you're with me. We'll attend the session itself, see what we can learn directly from the Council members." As they approached Centauri Prime, a sprawling ecumenopolis that served as the seat of galactic government, Aria couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Something about this felt wrong, too easy. Her suspicions were confirmed as they docked at the spaceport. A squad of Centauri security forces was waiting for them, led by a tall, reptilian figure Aria recognized all too well. "Ambassador Esverek," Aria said, keeping her voice level. "This is an unexpected welcome." The Draconian's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. "Captain Chen, did you really think your little incursion would go unnoticed? The Council has been aware of your approach since you left Earth space." Aria's mind raced. They'd been set up, but by whom? And why? "I'm afraid I'll have to ask you and your crew to come with us," Esverek continued, his clawed hand resting on the energy weapon at his hip. "The Council is most interested in hearing what you have to say." Aria exchanged quick glances with her team. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and their cover was blown. But they were also humanity's last hope. "Of course, Ambassador," Aria said smoothly. "We'd be happy to explain our presence to the Council." As they were led away, Aria's mind worked furiously. They'd been outmaneuvered, but the game wasn't over yet. If they could just get to the Council chambers, maybe they could still expose the truth. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council was a marvel of alien architecture, its soaring ceilings and crystalline walls designed to inspire awe in visitors from 1,000 worlds. But as Aria and her crew were marched in, surrounded by guards, she felt only a cold determination. The Council members sat in a great circle, representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their faces ranged from curiosity to outright hostility as they regarded the human interlopers. "Captain Aria Chen," the Arcturian counselor's voice boomed out. "You stand accused of espionage against the Galactic Council. How do you plead?" Aria stepped forward, her chin held high. "Not guilty, Counselor. We came here seeking the truth, nothing more." "The truth?" The vegan representative scoffed. "You came here to steal classified information, to undermine the very foundations of galactic peace." "Peace?" Aria's voice rang out, clear and defiant. "Is that what you call plotting the destruction of an entire species? We know about your plans for Earth. We know you intend to neutralize us before we can become a threat." A murmur ran through the assembled Council members. Some looked shocked, others guilty, and a few looked triumphant. It was then that Aria realized the terrible truth. This wasn't just about fear of humanity's potential. This was about power, about certain factions within the Council using Earth as a scapegoat to consolidate their own positions. As accusations and denials flew back and forth, Aria caught movement out of the corner of her eye. Zara had managed to slip away in the chaos, likely heading for the data hub. If she could just buy them enough time. You speak of peace, Area continued, her voice rising above the din. But you forget the price of that peace. You forget that it was humanity, along with our allies, who ended the Nexus War. You forget that it was our blood, our sacrifices, that brought stability to the galaxy. She turned, addressing not just the Council, but the video feeds that were broadcasting this impromptu trial across the stars. We came here seeking answers, yes, but not to undermine peace. We came because we believe in the ideals this council was founded on: cooperation, mutual respect, the belief that all sentient species have a right to exist and thrive. Her words seemed to have an effect. Some of the more moderate council members were nodding, while others looked uncomfortable. But before Area could press her advantage, alarms began to blare throughout the chamber. On the massive screens that lined the walls, tactical displays sprang to life, showing a massive fleet dropping out of hyperspace on the edge of the Centauri system. What is the meaning of this? The Arcturian counselor demanded. Area's blood ran cold as she recognized the ships. They were Earth vessels, but not the mothballed defenders she was familiar with. These were warships, ancient and terrible, awakened from some hidden slumber. And leading them was a ship Area had thought lost to legend, the HFY Prometheus, humanity's greatest dreadnought, presumed destroyed in the final battle of the Nexus War. As the council chamber erupted into panic, Area realized that the game had changed. Earth wasn't defenseless after all. And now, the galaxy was about to be reminded why humanity had once been the most feared force among the stars. The question was, could Area prevent this misunderstanding from sparking a war that would consume the galaxy once again? Or had they already passed the point of no return? The awakening giant. The council chambers descended into chaos as the massive human fleet loomed on the tactical displays. Area's mind raced, trying to make sense of this unexpected development. How had Earth managed to hide such a formidable force? And more importantly, who had given the order to mobilize? This is an act of war, the vegan representative shrieked, his tentacles writhing in agitation. The humans have deceived us all. Area stepped forward, her voice cutting through the pandemonium. No, this is a misunderstanding. Let me contact the fleet. I can prevent this from escalating. The Arcturian counselor fixed her with a piercing gaze. You claim no knowledge of this armada, Captain Chen. None, Area replied firmly. But I know my people. We don't want war. Let me prove it to you. After a tense moment, the counselor nodded. Very well. You have one chance to avert catastrophe. As Area was led to a communication terminal, her crew exchanged worried glances. This wasn't part of the plan, and they were running out of time. The screen flickered to life, revealing the bridge of the HFY Prometheus. Area's jaw dropped as she recognized the figure in the command chair, Admiral Zhao himself. Admiral, Area began, struggling to keep her voice steady. What's going on? Why have you brought the fleet here? Zhao's face was grim. We received intelligence that the Council was planning an imminent attack on Earth. We had no choice but to activate the Lazarus Protocol. Area's mind reeled. The Lazarus Protocol, a last resort defensive measure, hidden away after the Nexus War. A fleet of advanced ships, crewed by AI, and kept in stasis, ready to be awakened in humanity's darkest hour. Admiral, please, Area pleaded, aware of the council members listening intently behind her. There's been a misunderstanding. The situation here is complicated, but if you attack now, you'll be starting a war we can't win. Zhao's eyes narrowed. And if we do nothing, we risk losing everything. You have 10 minutes to provide proof that the threat against Earth has been neutralized, Captain. Otherwise, we will have no choice but to launch a preemptive strike. The communication cut off, leaving Area standing in stunned silence. 10 minutes to prevent an interstellar war. She turned to the Council, her mind working furiously. You've seen now that Earth is not defenseless. But I meant what I said. We don't want war. What we want is the truth. Who orchestrated this plot against my people, and why? The council members shifted uncomfortably, eyeing each other with suspicion. It was clear that not all of them had been aware of the full scope of the plan against Earth. Suddenly, Zura burst into the chamber, clutching the data crystal. "Captain, I've got it. Proof of the conspiracy." As Zora plugged the crystal into a nearby terminal, the chamber's screens came to life. Documents, communications, and secret meeting recordings began to play, laying bare a web of deceit that reached to the highest levels of the council. It became clear that a faction within the council, led by the vegan and draconian representatives, had engineered the crisis. They had manipulated intelligence, exaggerated threats, all in an effort to justify military action against Earth. Their goal wasn't just to neutralize humanity, but to use the conflict as a means to reshape the balance of power within the galaxy. As the evidence mounted, the council chamber grew deathly quiet. The accused members sputtered denials, but the proof was irrefutable. Aria turned to the Arcturian counselor, who seemed genuinely shocked by the revelations. "Now you see the truth. Earth is not your enemy. We've been pawns in someone else's game, but we can still stop this before it's too late." The counselor nodded gravely. "You're right, Captain Chen. This treachery cannot stand." He turned to the other members. "I move for the immediate suspension of the implicated council members and a full investigation into this conspiracy." As a flurry of votes and proclamations followed, Aria turned back to the communication terminal. With seconds to spare, she reconnected with the Prometheus. "Admiral Zhao," she said, her voice firm. "The threat has been neutralized. I'm sending you the proof now. Please, stand down the fleet." Long seconds ticked by as Zhao reviewed the information. Finally, he looked up, relief evident in his eyes. "Well done, Captain. The fleet will hold position, but we're not leaving until we're certain the danger has passed." As the transmission ended, Aria let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. They'd done it. They'd prevented a war and exposed a conspiracy that threatened the entire galaxy. But as she looked around the council chamber, at the shock and anger on the faces of representatives from 100 worlds, she knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy had been shaken to its core, old alliances were crumbling, and new ones would need to be forged. And at the center of it all stood humanity, no longer forgotten, no longer dismissed. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same. As the council scrambled to deal with the fallout of the revelations, Aria gathered her crew. There was still work to be done, explanations to be given, and a fragile peace to be maintained. But for now, they had accomplished their mission. They had reminded the galaxy of humanity's strength, not through force of arms, but through determination, ingenuity, and an unwavering commitment to the truth. As they made their way back to the Artemis, Aria allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years, she felt hope for the future, a future where humanity would take its rightful place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as partners in a new galactic order. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never forget again. Defiance of the stars. The fragile peace that Aria and her crew had brokered hung by a thread in the days following the revelations at the council chambers. As news of the conspiracy spread across the galaxy, old tensions flared and new alliances began to form. The Artemis and its crew found themselves at the center of a diplomatic storm, shuttling between Earth, Centauri Prime, and a dozen other worlds as they worked to maintain the uneasy truce. But not everyone was interested in peace. It was during a tense negotiation on the neutral world of Ta City that disaster struck. Aria and her team were meeting with representatives from the moderate council factions when the sky lit up with fire. A massive fleet, bearing the insignia of the hardline Vegan Draconian Alliance, cropped out of hyperspace and began bombarding the planet's defenses. "This is Ambassador K-Vex of the True Order," a cold voice announced over all communication channels. "The corrupt council has fallen. The human threat must be eliminated." Surrender now, or face annihilation. Aria's blood ran cold. This wasn't just an attack. It was the start of a coup, a bid to reshape the galaxy through force. Get to the ship, she shouted to her crew as the building around them shook from nearby impacts. They raced through chaos-filled streets, dodging panicked civilians and falling debris. As they reached the Artemis, Aria's comlink crackled to life. It was Admiral Zhao. Captain Chen, are you seeing this? It's not just Ta City. We're getting reports of simultaneous attacks across a dozen systems. Aria's mind raced as she strapped herself into the pilot's seat. It's a coordinated strike, Admiral. They're trying to take out anyone who opposes them before we can mount a defense. Agreed. The Lazarus fleet is mobilizing, but we're spread thin. We need you to buy us some time. As the Artemis lifted off, narrowly avoiding a barrage of energy weapons, Aria made a split-second decision. Admiral, have the fleet rendezvous at these coordinates. I have an idea, but it's going to take everything we've got. The next hours were a blur of frantic action. The Artemis darted between burning worlds, rescuing key political figures, relaying critical intelligence, and engaging in hit-and-run attacks against the enemy fleet. Aria pushed the old ship to its limits, relying on every trick and tactic she'd learned in her long career. But it wasn't enough. The True Order's forces were vast, their weapons devastating. World after world fell silent as the onslaught continued. Finally, battered and nearly out of power, the Artemis limped to the rendezvous point, a seemingly empty sector of space near the galactic core. There, they found the remnants of the Lazarus fleet, along with a ragtag assortment of ships from a dozen different species. The last free fleet in the galaxy. As Aria docked with the Prometheus, she was met by a grim-faced Admiral Zhao. It's bad, Captain. We're outnumbered 10-1, and more enemy ships are arriving every hour. If we don't do something soon, there won't be a free world left in the galaxy. Aria nodded, her face set with determination. Then it's time for one last gambit. Admiral, what do you know about the Nexus? Zhao's eyes widened. The Nexus? It's just a myth, a story told to explain the unexplainable events at the end of the last war. It's no myth, Aria said, pulling up a star chart. During our mission, we uncovered evidence that it's real. A massive ancient construct hidden in the heart of the galactic core. Some kind of interdimensional gateway or superweapon. It's what ended the last war, and it might be our only hope of ending this one. The plan was audacious, bordering on insane, while the bulk of the Allied fleet engaged the enemy in a massive battle. Drawing their attention, a small strike team led by Aria would slip through the chaos and make for the galactic core. There they would attempt to locate and activate the Nexus, hoping that its power would be enough to turn the tide. As the Artemis prepared to depart on its potentially suicidal mission, Aria gathered her crew one last time. I won't lie to you, she said, looking each of them in the eye. The odds of us surviving this are slim. But if we do nothing, billions will die, and the galaxy will fall into darkness. This is our chance to make a difference, to remind everyone why humanity and its allies are a force to be reckoned with. Who's with me? One by one, her misfit crew, the hacker, the smuggler, the warrior, nodded their assent. They had come too far to turn back now. As the massive space battle erupted around them, the Artemis slipped away, driving hard for the galactic core. They dodged energy beams, weaved through debris fields, and outran pursuing enemy ships. Finally, battered and nearly out of power, they'd reached their destination. Before them loomed a massive structure, a latticework of impossible geometries that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. The Nexus. As Aria and her team boarded the ancient construct, they knew that the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Whatever they found inside would either be their salvation or their doom. With a deep breath, Aria stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. The final battle for the future of the galaxy had begun. A new dawn. The interior of the Nexus defied comprehension. Corridors shifted and realigned themselves. Gravity fluctuated wildly, and visions of past and future events flickered at the edges of their perception. Aria and her team pressed on, guided by instinct as much as by the fragmented data they had uncovered. As they delved deeper into the heart of the ancient construct, they encountered echoes of those who had come before, ghostly images of long-extinct species who had discovered and used the Nexus in ages past. Each had faced their own crisis, their own existential threats, and each had paid a terrible price for the power they sought. "Captain," Zara called out, her voice tinged with awe and fear, "I think I've found the control center." They entered a vast chamber, at the center of which pulsed a swirling vortex of energy, the heart of the Nexus. Surrounding it were countless holographic displays, showing views of the ongoing battle outside and glimpses of other realities. As Aria approached the central controls, a shimmering figure materialized before them. An AI interface, the guardian of the Nexus. "Why have you come?" the figure asked, its voice resonating on multiple levels. Aria stepped forward. "Our galaxy is at war. Billions of lives are at stake. We need your help to stop it." The AI's expression remained impassive. "Many have come seeking the power of the Nexus. All have brought destruction in their wake. Why should you be any different?" "Because we're not seeking to control the Nexus," Aria replied, her voice firm. "We're asking for its help. There's a difference." For a long moment, the AI was silent, as if weighing their words. Finally, it spoke. "The power you seek comes at a great cost. Are you prepared to pay it?" Aria exchanged glances with her crew. They had come too far to turn back now. "We are," she said. The AI nodded. "Then prepare yourselves. The Nexus will show you the path, but you must choose to walk it." Suddenly, the chamber filled with blinding light. Aria felt her consciousness expanding, merging with the Nexus itself. In an instant, she saw the entirety of the galaxy, every world, every ship, every life hanging in the balance. She saw the True Order fleet, their weapons primed to deliver the killing blow to the Allied forces. She saw Admiral Jaddo on the bridge of the Prometheus, preparing for one last, desperate stand. And she saw the path to victory. With a thought, Aria reached out through the Nexus. Space itself seemed to ripple and unfold. Suddenly, the True Order fleet found itself scattered across the galaxy, their carefully coordinated attack thrown into disarray. At the same time, dormant defense systems on 100 worlds sprang to life, ancient technologies awakened by the power of the Nexus. The tide of battle shifted in an instant, but the strain was immense. Aria felt as if her very essence was being torn apart as she channeled the Nexus's power. Through the pain, she pushed harder, determined to see this through to the end. With a final, monumental effort, Aria sent out a pulse of energy that washed over the entire galaxy. In its wake, weapons fell silent, engines stalled, and for a brief moment, every being in the galaxy was connected, their minds touched by a vision of unity and peace. As suddenly as it had begun, it was over. Aria found herself back in the Nexus chamber, collapsed on the floor. Her crew gathered around her with concern etched on their faces. "Did it work?" she gasped. Zara helped her to her feet, gesturing to the holographic displays. The battle had ceased. Ships from both sides hung motionless in space. "It worked, Captain," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. "You did it." As they made their way back to the Artemis, Aria's comlink crackled to life. It was Admiral Jaddo. "Captain Chen," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what you did, but the enemy fleet is standing down. The war is over." The days and weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity. The galaxy, shaken to its core by recent events, struggled to find a new balance. The Galactic Council was reformed, with new checks and balances to prevent any one faction from gaining too much power. Humanity, once dismissed and forgotten, now found itself at the center of galactic politics. Their role in ending the conflict, combined with the revelation of the Lazarus fleet, had earned them both respect and wariness from other species. As for Aria and her crew, they were hailed as heroes across 100 worlds. But the victory had come at a cost. The use of the Nexus had taken its toll on Aria. Though she had survived, she could feel that something fundamental had changed within her. In a private meeting with Admiral Zhao and the new council leadership, Aria made her report. She told them of the Nexus, of its power and its danger. The Nexus is too powerful to be controlled by any one species or faction, she concluded. Its existence must remain a secret, known only to a select few who can ensure it's never misused again. The council agreed, though the decision weighed heavily on them all. The Nexus would be sealed away, guarded in secret by an elite group drawn from all species. As the meeting concluded, Admiral Zhao approached Aria. "What will you do now, Captain?" he asked. Aria looked out at the stars, feeling the echo of the Nexus' power still lingering within her. "There's still so much out there we don't understand," she said softly. "So many mysteries to explore, bridges to build between species. I think that's where I'm needed now." Zhao nodded, a small smile on his face. "The Artemis is yours, if you want it. You and your crew have more than earned the right to chart your own course." Aria felt a surge of excitement at the prospect. A new mission, a new purpose. As she walked the corridors of Centauri Prime one last time, preparing to embark on her new journey, Aria reflected on all that had happened. The galaxy had been reminded of humanity's strength, yes, but also of the power of cooperation, of diverse species coming together in the face of a common threat. The sleeping giant had awakened, but not as a conqueror. Instead, humanity had emerged as a mediator, a bridge between worlds. And perhaps that, Aria thought, was the greatest victory of all. As the Artemis lifted off, its course set for the unknown, Aria felt a sense of hope she hadn't experienced in years. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers in equal measure. But whatever challenges lay ahead, she knew that humanity, and the allies they had made along the way, were ready to face them. Together, they would forge a new future among the stars.